Alright, what's up guys? I wanted to make a video regarding looking at the future of Dark and Darker, because a lot of my videos recently have been me kind of just bitching about the game, saying how much I hate it, and, that type of thing. However, at the end of the day, I still do enjoy this game quite a bit. Believe it or, but believe it or not, I actually do enjoy Dark and Darker. This is one of my favorite games of all time, and I love it. However, with that being said, I feel like a lot of people just don't understand the reason I make those videos. Like, a lot of the comments are always just like, oh, you just can't deal smoke pot rogues, that type of thing. That's not why. And the funny thing is, like, a lot of people comment, like, wow, your content's really bitter, like, I don't like these style of videos from you. I've made videos like those plenty of times before. I think one of my more viewed videos is a video talking about the state of the game when it was really bad, and it was back during plus 3 all / buff ball meta. I don't know if it was plus 3 all and buff ball, but I know it was buff ball meta. Whenever like Barb buff ball just completely dominated the meta and nothing else was playable, I literally made a video back then with pretty much the exact same thing, saying like the game is just awful, the state of the game doesn't feel good, it's not like I don't enjoy playing it, no one really enjoys playing it, and it's not just the game environment isn't good. And the reason I make those videos, like, I'm not trying to get into this too much, but the reason I make those videos is because whenever you are somebody that has reach in the community, or even like, slightly, like, I'm not saying like, I'm not saying I have a ton of reach. However, I do, I have a platform and my voice is heard, relatively speaking. And even if I'm like, even if nothing changes, I want to feel like I at least did everything I could. Because whenever the game is in a bad state, and yeah, like, it's true, a lot of you don't experience smoke pot rogues, right? Like, for casual players that play norms, or, they're only ever in like green or blue gear, that doesn't really matter for you. It doesn't experience it for you. However, the thing is, Smoke Pot Rogue, on the other hand, if they nerf it, it really doesn't change anything for those players either. It's only really hindering people at the highest level. And most of those people haven't really talked out about it. Because, I mean, they're just playing the game, and they know, generally, that whenever you say things, nothing really happens. However, I want to speak out because maybe, maybe they hear me, and maybe other people start talking out about it, and things will change. Because if you don't, nothing ever, if you don't speak out about the things you don't like in a game, or when the state of the game isn't good, nothing ever gets changed. But that is that. Moving on from that, that's not what the video is going to be on. This video is going to be on looking towards the future, specifically looking at next wipe, things that are coming, things I have expectations for, all that type of stuff. Actually, here, let me pull up. I will throw, just some VOD footage on the screen that you guys can watch while I'm doing this if you want to. Or, just listen to me speak. Do whatever you want to do. There's not really going to be a ton going on. It's really just going to be me speaking. Other than that, here, like I said, let me throw up a VOD. Boom, 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 boom. Let's see if I can find it. Alright, and here we go. Alright, here we go. Alright, got it. Throw up the VOD. It is right here. Alright, boom. Okay. So this is on the screen. I'll just let this play. Like I said, watch it if you want to. Don't watch it if you don't want to. Tab out, do whatever. But for the most part, I'm just going to be talking here. So basically, we have next wipe coming up, relatively soon. Leaderboards ends in about 2 days. That's the time I'm making this video. Then they said they're going to have a 2-week preseason, basically, until we get the, until we get the actual next wipe. And then, they're going to have big changes during the preseason, and then as we go into next wipe, I assume there will probably be more changes because they're going to test things for here, and they're just going to try to finalize what they want in the game for the next wipe. And just, just as a statement, I don't have really any information that you guys don't have access to. Everything I'm going to speak about here is things that have been publicly stated, whether on a podcast, Q&A, SDF type in Gen Chat, any of that. So everything I'm saying here is public knowledge, not, leaking anything. I don't have any extra knowledge. I'm not going to show where I get the information from just because I'm lazy and I don't feel like pulling it all together because, I mean, if you guys care that much, just look it up. Most of the stuff been on like the Q&As or the devcast or, whatever they are, or go check pin comments, SDF's comments, all that stuff. But all right, and then some of it's just going to be pure speculation or, things I hope / want. So for starters, I think the biggest thing is, the two biggest things are what are they going to try for the 2 weeks after leaderboards and before wipe, and Druid. I think those are the two biggest things on everybody's mind. And, okay, so we will definitely have Druid by next wipe. I'm like 100% confident in that. If we don't, I think it'd be pretty insane. Like, I just don't see how they... I don't see how they could delay Druid even further. I think people would be really, really pissed off if they did. And then other than that, like I said, what are they going to do in this 2-week span before wipe and after leaderboards for the preseason? What kind of drastic things are they going to change? And honestly, I'm not really sure. Actually, well, I said everything be public. So one thing I have heard, and this isn't like, leaks or anything, but I have, because I know some people that have like data mined some stuff, and I mean, there's always been a ton of stuff data mined that they don't really care about. But I've heard talks, and people have seen like files with things that could be regarding a weight system in the game. And if you guys have been around for a while, or you're a new player and you don't know, there used to be a weight bar at the bottom of the inventory screen. It never did anything, but roughly down there, like, I just pull on, let me see if I can pause it. Wherever the gold thing was at the bottom of your inventory, let's see if I can, where are we at? Like down here where the gold was, there was like a weight thing. It never did anything, but there was a weight limit. And they have said before they wanted to add weight into the game. However, I think most people pretty much said they didn't want it because it's just not, weight system is not something fun to deal with. No one wants to have to manage that while also managing everything else. But other than that, I'm really not sure what they would try. I assume we'll probably get some pretty big class balances again, or, I'm not even, like I said, I'm really not even sure. Other than class balance and maybe game changes overall, I think a lot of people would like the game to be slowed down a bit. And the things like gear changes for crafted gear and stuff like that, they can't really test it, over, like, in these 2 weeks because the game isn't going to wipe. They're not going to remove gold gear from the game because that would just delete it from people's stashes. And that wouldn't really, that would kind of screw over some players, I imagine. So that's not going to happen. So really the best things to look at are, okay, well, this is actually something I was going to, other than the weight system, that may or may not be coming because that could just be something that's completely BS and it's been in the files forever. So we have no idea about that. That is just, like I said, something I've heard from people. Other than that, what I really, really want for these 2 weeks is I want them to add content to the game like Druid or any other things they want to add, like, other spells, other songs, skills, perks, any of that. Any of that they have planned for next wipe, I want them to add it so we can test it over those 2 weeks to find out if there's anything that's really, really game-breaking. Perfect example, Den of Darkness Bard, Locust Worm Cleric on release. Both of those were incredibly broken, and I would really, really like the 2-week span to test those so people can find out what is and isn't broken before leaderboards go up. So then they can look at that and be like, oh, wow, this is super OP, and it, ruins ruins PvP fights because of how broken it is. All right, we nerf that before our leaderboards are out, or for the next wipes out, so leaderboards are out. So that's not ruining, leaderboards or whatever. And that, I think, would be ideal. And also, releasing Druid and then let us test Druid for those 2 weeks. If it's underperforming, overperforming, whatever, and they can kind of try to get it in balance a little bit for the leaderboard release. I don't think waiting for the new wipe would be ideal for Druid, because also something else is that it lets you, it'll let you experiment with the class at a very high gear level, because obviously everybody has like a ton of gear now, you have a ton of money, you can buy the gear for the class, put it on it, test it. You won't have to wait until, you get gear next wipe to gear it up and then test it and see how good it is. You can just test it now. And also that lets people decide, they get to test the class, see if they like it, see if it's fun, see if they hate it, and they decide whether they want to play it at the start of the wipe. And I mean, I think that's probably, that's not like important balance-wise, it's just important, to see if like people want to do it, see if they can have fun with it. However, other than that, something else I think is worth mentioning is arenas. I've talked about this before, I made a few videos on it, and we haven't really had a ton of information regarding it. However, I do think we will be getting arenas next wipe if all things go as planned. Obviously there's no guarantee. I hope they do. I really hope they do, but there's no guarantee. However, I would say it's a pretty good chance, and I'm very excited for arenas. And if you are someone who really enjoys competitive side or like, esports, that type of thing, I think arenas are probably the thing you should be looking the most forward to. Because if Dark and Darker, if this game ever has any sort of competitive / pro scene, which they have said before, because they've been asked before, they have said that if their players and community wanted a pro scene or a competitive scene for Dark and Darker, that is something that they would not be against doing it. And arenas are the way they would have. Arenas are like 99% the way they would have to do it. So like I said, if you're looking for any for competitive or pro scene or anything like that, arenas are going to be what you're looking for and what you're excited for. Also, going a bit further into arenas and talking about it a little bit more, so most people have had issues with, leaderboards and how leaderboards work. The PvP players generally, famously, they do not like them because for the most part, all it is just a, you know, it's just a grind. Whoever plays the most, and it's all like, you know, AP farming. PvP plays a very little part into it. However, other than that, you know, you don't really like it's other than just the fact that it's like, you know, you have to take out, like, you have to get AP and it doesn't really give you much for kills or PvPing. So if you want to get high rank, stay demigod, you pretty much have to come out with an inventory full of sellables every single game. So let's say, you know, you kill a full juice team, there's like this gear you can't bring out because, oh, I'm going to bring this gear out? Okay, cool, I'm going minus 500 AP this game. And that's just not a really fun play style. Most people don't like to play it. I don't like to play it. If you guys, I mean, if you know, I play on a second character. Excuse me. Because my first character's in demigod. I got my first character in demigod within the first couple weeks. And after it got demigod, I just pretty much AFK sat there because I did not want to play it. I was not willing to because that is just, it's not fun. Oh, God. Oh, wait, hold on. Let me back this up. This is a good fight. All right, let's just get that back a little bit. Okay, there we go. But, yeah, I didn't want to play it. It's not fun to have to play and perma farm AP. You have to go to hell every single run, or you're just gonna go minus like a ton of points. You have like PvP is completely secondary because for me PvP is my favorite thing in this game. It's what I enjoyed the most. It's what I like to do. I mean, obviously I'm gonna boss and, like, you know, farm shit like that. But that's just, I don't want that to be like I want that to be something I do because I want to, not because I'm forced to or I'm gonna D rank. So I don't think we will see changes to the leaderboards. If we do, I think it'll be very, very minor. Maybe they buff up kills a little bit more or lower, you know, the entry fee a little bit for like very high for trios. That or increase the value for gear or sellables or whatever it may be. But other than that, like I said, going back to arenas. So the thing is, obviously right now, the current leaderboards are PvE. Like, that's generally what most people consider. Most people consider them PvE leaderboards. However, arenas, assuming, you know, if whenever we get them, we'll get leaderboards for those, and that will be the PvP focused leaderboards. So all the PvP sweats can play arenas for their leaderboard grind, and all the people that don't really care about PvP or just want to PvE grind, or PvE/PvE can play norms and grind that leaderboard. And then you have this really good separation. So it's like, oh, some parts PvP focused, some parts relatively PvE focused. You know, is what it is. And then furthermore, we're just going a step further because, once again, like I said, this is most of this is just what I hope for. I have no information. I doubt they'll do it the way I'm hoping. However, though, I think this is definitely the best way to do it. So for arenas and for the arena leaderboard, there are two ways they can do it. Well, there's a couple more than two ways. There's two main ways they can do it. One is it's just 24/7 open leaderboards. You know, you play, they track your wins, kills, whatever. Or we have arenas open. See, I think arenas, either you have it as a game mode that's open sometimes, and, you know, you could play it during, like, you know, Saturdays from, like, 9 to 9, right? You could play it during those times. Or, I technically say three ways. Or, you have it so they're open 24/7, play all the time. You know, climb leaderboards all the time. Or, third option, which I think is probably the best, have it so arenas are open 24/7, only make the leaderboard active sometimes. Only have the leaderboard active for, like, you know, 6 hours on weekends. Like, you know, 3 hours Saturday, 3 hours Sunday. So that way, the leaderboards don't just become, oh, I play the most, so, you know, I have the, I have the highest points, and there's nothing you can do because I'm playing 16 hours a day, and you are only playing 10. Like, it's just, so the thing is, even the people like me that grind the game and love playing the game, they're like, I cannot compete with the people that are literally going to play 24/7. And generally speaking, the people that's going to be, that's going to be are the streamers, right? Like, think of, like, the people that are getting paid and making money playing this game and it's their job. It's always going to be them, and you can't compete with them. You just can't, because they're just going to play more than you. And then when leaderboards, especially when the things like, you know, think old style Dark and Darker leaderboards where they just had the kill leaderboards where it's only added up and you never lost anything. Just the more you play, even if you're dying, you know, even if your kills per game is lower by a lot than other people, you're just playing more and you're never losing those points out, losing out on those points because, you know, there's no way to decrease them, so it only increases. So it just keeps getting better and better. But other than that, like I said, I'm just excited for arenas in general. I think it's gonna be very fun. I think for PvP players, I think it'll be very you know, new. It'll be exciting, fun to play. I think it could get casual players into PvP a bit more, because a lot of casual players are a bit too scared to play PvP because like, oh, you know, scared of losing my gear, you know, scared of fighting because, you know, it's hard to like, you know, get experience playing, that type of thing. And I think the best way to do it is you play Dungeonborn, which I loved. I mean, I'm sure I talked about Dungeonborn a ton. I love playing it. I streamed it a ton. If they do it the way Dungeonborn does, basically, is you can take in all the gear you want. Like, you can take in any level of gear, and they have some form of gear matchmaking system, like, you know, based on rarity. So, like, purple and up gear pretty much get matched together. If you had, like, blue gear below, you generally wouldn't get matched with purples. Very rarely would you. But, other than that, like I was saying, let me jump forward in the VOD. I'll jump back to the beginning of this game. You go here. Oh, jump too far forward. Alright, there we go. But, other than that, being able to bring in all your own gear and then make it so you don't lose gear. So that way, you know, even if I bring in gear that's worse and I die to somebody that way more geared than me, which, you know, I wouldn't complain about usually, right? I mean, because I feel like I could probably beat them. But, you know, if somebody else, like, you know, say like, you know, little Timmy 23 brings in his first good purple kit of the whole wipe that's taken him 2 weeks to get, and then he fights fucking Toddfather TTV, the God Sweat Squad, and gets rolled. You know, that sucks that he died, and it sucks that he lost. However, if you don't lose the gear, who cares, right? Because you just queue right back up with it and go again. But if you lose that gear, why would you why are these players that are already scared of PvPing and already, like, having issues, like, saying people are gear diffing them, ever queue into arenas? Because they are now willingly putting themselves in a situation where the only goal is to fight these people that are super geared. They're just never going to do it. And I want arenas to be full. I want arenas to be thriving. I want to be able to queue all the time and have fun PvP fights. But that's just not going to happen for the most part. It's rare that we're going to get that. So I would really, really like for the arenas to not be, you know, like full loot where you lose the shit you take in. I really hope it's not. I'm pretty confident that they won't do it. I feel like if they do, maybe they'll change it, just because they're going to see how few people are playing it. Because I'm not going to say, like, no one's going to play it, because, like, people like me, or, like, you know, the other really geared people that are really confident in their PvP skills, they're going to play it because it's just fun. It's free PvP. It's what we enjoy. However, I think the general population is not going to play it, which is, you know, kind of sad. Because, I mean, I think PvP is the most fun part of this game, right? Like, no one plays this game just to PvE. You play it to PvP because PvP is fun. And I want as many people as possible to get into that PvP and be able to enjoy it and experience it. And also, the thing is, so, like, you know, think of the casual players that don't get to play that much, right? You know, they only play an hour or two a day, if that, right? It's really hard. Well, not really hard, but it takes a little bit longer for these guys to build up a good kit. And then when they do build up that good kit, or if they find good gear, more often than not, they're probably not going to run it just because they feel like it's not worth it, right? Like, you know, let's say they pull a named item. 99% of the time, they're going to sell it instead of run it because they don't have gear. They don't have gear that they feel is good enough to run it in, and generally they don't. So their option is to run it in a really bad kit and most likely lose it, or they sell it and then they can buy more gear. Generally, they're going to sell it. However, if we have arenas that are like, you know, bring your own gear in and you don't lose it, these players that would normally never use this because they're too scared to run it, which I don't fault them for. I'm not saying it's bad to be scared to run really good gear. I mean, obviously, you know, if you're scared to run it, you're never going to run it and you're never going to experience it. However, if we now have arenas where you can run all this gear, all these like little Timmys, like little Timmy 23, can bring in his Elven Bow of Truth he found to run it and not have to be scared. And then you can experience using all these things you normally never would. So that's why I think arenas could be really, really good, and I think it'd be really, really fun for the game, and I think it could help even the casual players a ton. And then when you get experience running that really good gear, it translate over to running in norms. Because like, oh, you know, I've been PvPing people all these really good gear. We've been washing all these really geared teams with our gear. We go into norms, and with it, we can take really good gear in there because it builds your confidence. You know, you get more experience PvPing. It's like when it's like if you practice a bunch of good players and a bunch of good gear, naturally you're gonna get better. And that's a normally experience these guys would never have. So, you know, maybe for next wipe, they're much better players because they practice in arena a ton. They go in and they just go crazy and they get geared up even faster, even if they're not playing that much. You know, because this game, while playtime is important, yes, if you're really good at the game, even if you don't have a ton of playtime, you're still going to do a lot, right? That's just kind of how it works. But, all right, I'm trying to think if there's anything about arenas that I'm... There's definitely something else I meant to say about arenas, but I cannot remember what it is for the life of me. Maybe I'll remember it in a minute. I don't know. Probably not. Maybe it wasn't even about arenas. Maybe I'm just an idiot. Oh, God, I lost my train of thought. I can't think of anything now. Oh, I hate my life. Fuck. Okay. Other than I'm just gonna start talking and hopefully it comes back to me. Other than that, there's not like a ton of things I'm super excited for the new wipe. I mean, I think, you know, the new wipe, it'll bring, you know, balance patches, hopefully new things for classes, that type of stuff. I think I would just like to see, I don't know, I don't know. Because there's not a ton that I really want in the game. I think the game is in a relatively good spot balance-wise. I don't think anything's super broken right now. I don't think anything's super weak. I think, obviously, you know, like HR is definitely, you know... Oh, I remember maps. Whoa, thank God, I did it. Fuck everything I was saying up to this moment. Solos and duos. I think this is probably the biggest thing people are going to look back towards now. So, we did have a comment saying that they were looking at removing duos and adding random match making, right? And I don't mean like, you know, you can queue with anyone. I mean adding like a group finder, basically. Like you queue up and it autofills people on your team. But those two things, they were kind of combined together. They said if they remove duos, then they would add it. Or, you know, if removing duos work, they would think about add it. So the problem was they got a lot of like backlash from saying they were going to remove duos, because obviously all the people that only play duos aren't very happy about hearing you're removing duos, right? Like if they said, hey, we're removing trios, all of us trio players would not be very happy about that. And I mean, I understand, but the problem is, the thing is, they even said, like, you know, we heard that you guys, you know, we heard like you guys like want to keep duos, but they even said there's a fundamental problem with it. Not specifically duos, but the problem is there are just too many game modes right now that exist. You have solo, you have like, you know, solo caves, norm HR, duo ice cavern, solo, what's it called, norms HR, and then trio ruin, solo HR. 6 modes open per region, and then you have to throw in the solo or the HR norm version of the rotation map. So 8 possible queues open per region. The game's player base isn't bad, you know, around 10k average. That's fine. However, that's not enough to support all these queues, and the devs know it. So your only real option is to start cutting off. You gotta start cutting off the edges. You gotta start dropping queues. And the problem is, so the thing is, I've said this before, but they never should have added all of these different queues. Whenever they added solos, I was like, you know what? I don't hate solos, right? I think solo Goblin Caves existing is fine. I don't love it, but I think the best part about it is, you know, if you don't have friends to play with at the time, let's say your friends get off, you know, just want to chill, play some Goblin Caves. Or, you know, if you're new to the game, easiest way to learn is going to be go solos, learn in solos, right? That's just how it's going to be. However, they then added HR Goblin Caves, and I was like, okay, you know, I don't love it. I kind of, you know, I really wish they hadn't, because the problem when they added, so I actually, if you guys ever, like, you know, in the Dark and Darker Discord, I talk in the fire chat a lot in there. I had this discussion in there. The second they decided to add HR caves, and we knew it, I said, this is bad, because eventually they're going to add duos, and when they add duos, they're going to have to add HR duos, because the duos players are going to cry. And that's exactly what happened. They added duos, and then shortly after, they added high roller duos. And the problem with this is when you keep catering to players, and because there's nothing wrong with catering to your community, right? Doing things that are good, there's nothing wrong. However, when you are doing things that are actively hurting the game, it's not good. Like, yeah, making players happy and making a certain percentage of your players happy is a good thing. However, if their happiness comes at the cost of the game's health, it's not ideal. Because, yeah, sure, is adding duos gonna make some players happy right then? Is adding HR duos gonna make some players happy right then? Yeah. However, you know, a few months down the line, when a bunch of players have stopped, or the game's player base just dropped naturally, having all these extra queues open is gonna be detrimental to the game. Because then you're splitting up all these players. So now we're at a situation, we're at that exact situation, actually. There is too many queues open, and there's not enough players to fill them. And most people are like, oh, you know, game just needs to come to Steam. You know, the game needs to be on Steam. Steam fixes all the problems. Well, not really. Yeah, if it releases on Steam, and everybody loves the game, and the game has 100,000 players, then yeah, most of the problems are fixed. That's true. Well, what if they release on Steam right now, and the game's in a poor state, and then, you know, that people don't like it, people don't play it? They only have one chance to release the game on Steam. They don't get to re-release it. They have one shot at it. And if they release the game on Steam, and, you know, it doesn't hit, and people just don't play it, like, that's it. The game's probably chalked. I'm just gonna be honest with you. Like, it is very rare for a game to get released like it not have success, and then it gets more success later on down the road. That is not common, especially smaller like games like this that aren't like big studios. There are a few games that have done that with, like, that I can think of. Destiny 2 on release wasn't that great, but later they kind of fixed their stuff and got players back a lot. And the other, I mean, I think that was a recent one. Other one, No Man's Sky. But that wasn't because the game was bad. That was because they just straight up lied about everything regarding the game. But now the game's kind of in a better spot. Pretty solid game. Heard people like it quite a bit. Really fun game. Never played it myself. Don't really care about it. But it is rare for a game to release, people not like it, and then people to go back and try it later. Most likely what will happen if this game releases and it doesn't like succeed very hard on Steam release, it's probably just going to slowly die. Or it'll get replaced by another one. By Dungeonborn or whatever other new game out there that's Dark and Darker like that does it better. Because right now, like, Dark and Darker was the first, but it is not going to be the only game in this genre, because game devs and game companies see how much people like Dark and Darker, and I guarantee you there are a lot of games that they're being produced that are just like this, that want to take that spot. And it really wouldn't be that hard to do. Dungeonborn is already in a prime position to take its spot. They just have to fix a few things here and there, and it's going to be just on par with Dark and Darker. So everything Dark and Darker has had and built up can be taken away very, very fast if they fuck up the Steam release. Very fast. It is not hard. It won't be hard at all. But other than that, not to be doom and gloom about the potential Steam release. So back to Solos news. So the issue is we have all these queues open. We have not enough players to fill them. However, some of our players don't want the queues to be removed because they play them. See, that's the problem. Is they can't just delete the queue, because if they just delete the queue, then it potentially pushes all the players that play away. So what do you have to do? Well, honestly, my opinion is just say fuck them. I'm just gonna be real with y'all. Just fucking delete duos, delete HR solos, delete Goblin Caves, let solos queue on Crypts. Boom. I mean, listen, that's all I'm saying. I mean, that's in a perfect world, but that's not gonna happen, unfortunately. That is never going to happen. Also, I will get onto the issue of maps in a little bit. Hopefully, I don't forget again. Maybe I will. I'm going to type it right here. I'm going to type it right here so I don't forget. There we go. Cool. Got it. Okay. But yeah, I think it's unlikely they're going to do that. If I had to guess, I would say the most likely solution they will go with is they will have duos and solos as rotating game modes. How long they'll be rotating, I don't know. Ideally, it'd be a bit longer. I don't think they should do this fast rotation shit. I think it's really stupid. Fast rotation, unironically, makes the game worse, because then you have people that sit here and they wait for the rotation. They queue only that game mode. So let's say people that only want to play solo ruins, right? I don't know how many are out there, but there's there's little Timmy32 that only wants to play solo ruins, and that's all he queues 24/7. He sits here and he just waits to play solo ruins the entire time. All right, let me skip through this next one because nothing happens here. Boom. But yeah, so while there's, while technically speaking, there's only 8 queues open at a time, once you have these people that are only like perma waiting for one queue, it opens up, 9, 10, 11, 12 queues, because they're only queuing this one specific one. They're not playing other things, they're just doing that one specific one. So that's why you need the rotation to be longer, because you need players, like if your players are playing the game only for one thing, that's not good. And people are saying, oh, you only play for trios. That's not true. Trio is my favorite. However, I've played a ton of duos, and I've played an okay amount of solos. Recently, I played like nothing but duos for like a week straight because I was grinding my friend Demigod. But you want people to be playing all your game modes, or at least, the game modes that are available to them. You don't want to be like, oh, it's on Trio Crypts. Nope, not playing that. I'll play when it comes back to duos, and they sit there for an hour waiting for it, right? Whenever the game's in that state, that's not good. And that's where we were at before with the old map rotation, when you had like things like Trio, Goblin Caves, and that type of shit, right? People did not enjoy them, so they didn't play them. But other than that, like I said, I think they should do it on a rotation. I think the rotation should be decently long. I'm not going to say super long. I think having, 1-day solos, 1-day duos is ideal. Or have solos and duos, don't delete them entirely, but have them as special game modes that come back, on the weekends, you have solos and duos, right? Or, on Mondays it's solos, and on Tuesdays it's duos, whatever. But have them as special game modes that aren't necessarily available all the time, but you do have time to play them. So like all day Saturday is solos day, all day Sunday is duos day, or whatever it is, something like that, where the players can still play them, but it kind of fixes the issue of queues, because okay, if you're on the weekend you're playing solos and duos, but every other day during the week you're playing trios. Because I've heard a lot of people say, oh, if duos wasn't in the game, I just wouldn't play. If solos weren't in the game, I just wouldn't play. That's bullshit. If you like this game enough, then you'll play. You know why? You'll just find a trio. Like, it's if you play duos, if you like duos especially, if you could find one person to play duos with, you could find a third person to play trios with. I firmly believe it. And the whole point, so I had this conversation with many people before. This is a multiplayer online game. The whole point of these games is to play multiplayer, meet people, make friends, play with people. And if you just don't want to do that, and you're like, I refuse to do this, I will not, like, meet people, talk to them, or make any friends, then that's not on the game to cater to you. That's a you problem. Like, if you just absolutely refuse under any circumstance to meet people and play with people, the game should not be catered to you. That was the problem in solos and duos. That's why they originally added it. Like I said, solos, I don't hate the idea of. Just normal solo Goblin Caves, I don't hate the idea of, because it fits a role that isn't just, oh, I only want to play duos. It serves as like a tutorial, serves as a place for new players, serves as a place just to like chill, if like your trio gets off and you want to keep playing, but you don't want to play solo trios. It's its own little thing, and it's not just a solo game mode, right? It stands for a lot more. However, duos, not the same thing. Duos is 100% people saying, oh, we want to play duos. And I'm like, okay, fine, we'll add it, even though we know we shouldn't. That was 100% them just catering to the wrong community. Absolutely what it was. I know it was. I mean, everybody knows it was, because now they're even backtracking and saying they want to remove it. So they knew it was a mistake. However, and now they're saying, yeah, we fucked up. We have to remove it now. However, there's enough players that don't want it removed. And see, that's the problem. Is if duos never existed to begin with, if they'd never made it, all those people crying for duos eventually would have stopped and they'd just play solos or trios. And all these people that are now saying, oh, we'll stop playing if you remove duos, never would have done that because they never would have been playing duos to have to remove it. So they would have been playing solos or trios. And, if, let's say they remove duos, and like 20% of the players that only play duos quits. Okay, that's fine, because not all of them are going to quit. If you tell me every single duos player that only plays duos will quit because they removed it, I would call you a liar, 100%. Same as solos players. Just because they remove solos doesn't mean every single solos player is going to quit. You know what they're going to do? They're just going to start finding people, and they're going to play trios because they love this game and they want to play it. And that right there is the fundamental problem behind them adding all these queues, is adding the queues. The best way to explain this, I mean, I don't even mean this in a BM way, right? Let's say a child wants a toy, right? And the child cries and cries and cries and cries and cries and cries. And then you give them the toy. Do you know what the child's going to do? Next time they want something from you, they're going to start crying until you give it to them. And that's exactly where Iron Mace is at. People cried enough until Iron Mace gave them what they wanted. And now they're going to think that, oh, if we just cry 24/7, they'll keep giving us what we want. And that's exactly how it works. That's exactly how people are. And that's why what you have to do is you gotta wait that crying out. Don't give them the toy they want. Wait it out, and eventually they will stop crying. Or at worst they'll ask for it at worst they'll ask for it in a nicer way. That's the end. But the thing is, giving in to the people that, because the problem is, as an individual player, you don't care generally about the health of the game. You know what you care about? You care about playing and having fun in that moment. You don't care about the health or the longevity of a game. But when you are a game dev and you're the game company, that's not what you would consider. Yes, you want your players to have fun. Yes, you want them to enjoy the game. However, you have to look at your game and think of its longevity as a whole. And if you are actively making decisions, which they have been, that hinders that, you are clearly doing something wrong. When they are adding in game modes that they know are bad for the game, that they will have to remove later because people want them, like, that's where they're fucking up. Because yes, you want to make your players happy. However, they would still be playing. They were playing the game before duos. They were playing the game before solos. You know what they would do? They'll play after it. So you didn't need to add it to begin with. And now we have all these other problems that are caused by that. I think the biggest issue with them adding other game modes was that Iron Mace is a small dev company, right? Like, they're trying to expand, but they're a small game development company. They didn't have a ton of people on their dev team. But because they added all these other game modes, and with the game modes, they added new maps. Think Goblin Caves, Ruins. We have Ice Caves now. All of these other things, they added all of them. And the problem was, when they added all of them, wasn't that not even just splitting up the player base, completely ignoring that, moving on from that. The problem with them adding all of these game modes was it then split their small development team even further. So instead of having, it's a small team is fine if you're all focusing on one thing, or relatively one thing. But when you have this small team that has to work on 3 different maps You know, they're working on Goblin Caves, they're working on different Goblin Caves modules, new Goblin Caves, they're working on Crypts modules, they're working on Ice Caves, they're working on Hell, they're working on all these other things, and they're already a small team. So you have this small team split up so many different ways. Whereas if you didn't have all these game modes, you didn't have all these different maps like Goblin Caves or Ruins. I mean, I think Ruins was always in, so that's not really a good example. But if you didn't have all these other things, you could focus more so on one or two things, and then put all your like development team towards that. Think of the things that we haven't gotten. Because I mean, I'm not gonna say like, I mean, this is not a good example because I'm not gonna say, obviously like the people that work there do different things, right? It's not like they have 20 people working on the classes or in-game like UI or anything like that, marketplace, that type of stuff. However, if we had these people all focusing on one thing, we might have things, right now that we still don't. For example, look at how long the marketplace has taken. Look at how long Druid's taken. We still don't have the talent tree. The talent tree has been coming soon for almost a year now. Actually, it's over a year, because I'm pretty sure that shit was in PT4. I don't know about you guys, but unless you're like an elf, and you live in thousands of years, coming soon usually means coming soon, not coming in over a year. Because over a year is not soon. But because they have to split their focus between so many things, everything is just getting slowed down, and everything feels way worse. Think of how fast things were coming out towards the playtest 4, playtest 5. We were getting things so fast. Unironically, I think we have had less added to this game in like since early access came out, since like compared to like playtest to playtest. I mean, I could be wrong and I could just be coping, but it really does feel like that. Think of Warlock. We got Warlock on early access release at the beginning of August. It is now February, almost March, and we still don't have Druid. We don't even have an early iteration of Druid. So, I mean, they could be releasing it, they could be releasing full Druid, like, full class, fully fleshed out, and not, like, partial, how they did with Bard and Warlock, but I don't think they are. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I don't really think they are. I'm expecting it to be released incomplete, which is, the thing that would make the most sense, because that's how they've done all their other characters. But we've been waiting this long. And you know what the weirdest part is? The thing is, you know what they said? I mean, I don't even know if you guys paid attention to that, but you know what they said made them delay Druid? Was they were trying to get the bear to fit through a door. Or trying to make the bear not fit through a door. When it turns to the bear, they wanted it to not fit through a door. And that's delayed Druid by like 2 months. Like, what? Really? You're trying to make the bear fat? That's what's delayed Druid for 2 months? I mean, I don't know about you guys, but that just seems a little insane to me. But like I said, other than that, this game has had a lot of issues between adding different queues, and I think the way to resolve the issue is getting rid of them. However, doing that is going to be very, very difficult, because a lot of players are used to playing with their toys now, and when you want to take that toy away from them, they're not going to want to give it up. They're going to cry. And I mean, shit, like I said, I don't blame them. Like, all these people now that are whining about, like, oh, we don't want duos gone, we don't want solos gone, any of that. I mean, who can blame them? That's what they've been playing. That's probably all they've played for a long time. If you're someone who's played solos pretty much exclusively, trying to swap over to playing trios is not going to be easy. Same with the duos. If someone's played duos exclusively, you're either going to stop playing with your friend and play solos, or you're going to find a new one and play trios, which is definitely not super easy to do if you're not accustomed to it. However, like I said, if they'd never been added in the first place, we wouldn't be in this situation. And someone like, oh, well, you wouldn't have all those players to begin with. Yeah, you probably still would. You'd probably still have most of them. If you lost a couple of them, who cares? Acceptable losses. You can't keep everybody happy. I think that's the biggest problem Iron Mace has tried to make for the longest time, is they're trying to make everyone happy, and in the process, they're making most people upset. Like, so many changes they've done have just been like, oh, we're changing this so because you guys want this, and like the other part of the only one part wants that, and everybody else hates it. That's been a big issue all throughout. But other than that, I'm trying to think of what we're getting for next wipe. I mean, I can't really think of anything else. Hopefully you get like new weapons. Actually, no, my bad. Maps. Yay! I remember maps. I have it typed right here. I almost forgot it because I'm an idiot. So, maps. I think the biggest thing on everybody's mind, the two biggest things, one, ruins to crypts. If you're a trios player, I think this is the thing you care about the most. Most trios players want to go back to playing crypts and not ruins. Because ruins just isn't fun of a map. Very, very poorly designed currently. To make it good for trios, I think it would need a major overhaul. pretty much around the board. Most modules are pretty much unplayable. Like, it's just impossible to fight in them against range comps because of how open they are and how, like, you know, wide open the space is. Very, very unfun. And most people really, really want Crypts back. I'm one of those. Crypts is way more fun to fight in. It's way easier, harder to get third party, all of this. It's just generally a more fun map to fight on. And then other than that, Ice Caves. We're going to be getting new Ice Caves modules. Not modules, new Ice Caves map, I believe. So we're getting the second floor to Ice Caves, or the third floor. I don't actually know which one it is. But we're getting a new Ice Caves floor, and with that, we are probably getting the Wyvern boss, which is very, very exciting. Because new boss should be really cool. You know, it's been hyped up for a long time. That'll be really fun. I think the biggest issue that is going to appear is if, you know, they're adding the second floor to Ice Caves. However, they've been talking about removing duos. So, or third floor to Ice Caves. We're on the second floor now. Okay, but the problem is, if they remove duos, but leave ruins and they leave Ice Caves, are they both going to be trios maps, and are we able to queue both of them? Because that wouldn't make a ton of sense to me. You know, I don't. I mean, are they going to go back to map rotation? That doesn't seem like a good idea. I don't think players would like that. I wouldn't like that. I don't like map rotation. Most people don't like map rotation because it's not good. Kind of fucks most people over. So, what are we going to do? Are we going to have two trios maps that are available to queue at the same time? Are we going to do like Apex, and are we going to bank maps where, you know, or like, you know, you can't, like, Crypts is open for 1 week, Ice Caves is open for another? Are we just going to, like, toss ruins in the trash all together and be like, okay, can't play this map right now, you can only play Ice Caves? You know, because I wouldn't mind that. I think, you know, them choosing to lock maps occasionally, so, you know, there's closed and you can't queue it, I wouldn't mind it. I think it's fine for the game. I think it's probably something that's going to happen. If you have too many maps, you don't really have much of a choice, because you can't have all the maps open at the same time, especially not for the same... Like, you don't want to split your trio player base into, like, for example, like, you don't want to have half your trio player base on ruins and half on Ice Caves. It wouldn't be like that, but, you know, theoretically speaking. You don't want 50% one place, 50% other place, because then it's, once again, then they're getting split out between ranks and all this stuff. It's just not good. You want them all on one area. So how are they going to do it? And honestly, I'm not sure. I really don't know. I mean, you know, like I said, I really hope the way they do it is they just close down one of the maps, but they're definitely not going to close Ice Caves, right? So surely they would close ruins. Or you make it so, you know, this is actually something that I think could do. Have it so, like, ruins, crypts, hell, have it as a normal game mode. Make that normals. Or make it HR, and then have Ice Caves or whatever, make that the norm mode for trios. Have one be norms for trios, and have the other be HR for trios. I think that's the current way they should do it. I mean, this is too late to talk about this, but because, well, not too late to talk about this, but I mean too late in terms of the wipe, not for the video. I think the current way they should do it is how it was when it was introduced. Ruins into Crypts was the normal game mode, and then Crypts into Hell was the high roller game mode. Shout out Blue Crypts if you remember. Hate that shit. Worst thing in the game. But that was how they did it originally. And I think that would work if you're doing it for, okay, norms is, you know, Ruins, Crypts, Hell. HR is Ice Village, Ice Caves, fucking Ice Abyss, I think the name of it is. You do it like that, because then your player base isn't split between... It's split between norms and HR, but that already was. It's not split between HR for trios, right? Because that is not the way you want to do it. However, like I said, honestly, I'm just going to be completely honest. I have zero faith in them doing it that way. I think they're going to... I think it's going to be trios available. It's either going to be map rotation, or it's going to be... You could queue either on trios, and that's going to be awful. But... With that being said, this has already been a very, very long video, and I don't have a ton else to talk about. I'm pretty sure that mostly sums it up. I'm excited for next wipe. I'm excited for these next 2 weeks to see, you know, what changes, see if the game's any good. But with that being said, if you guys have ideas or, you know, things you'd like to see for next wipe or anything like that. Also, if you have any videos you'd like me to make or speak about, feel free to comment them down below. I'm always looking for ideas. I love talking about Dark and Darker. It's super fun. I love making the style videos, just kind of yapping. Super enjoyable. But with that being said, you know, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. If you have any thoughts, opinions, feel free to leave them down below on what you'd like to see for the next wipe or that type of thing. And with that being said, I will catch you guys next time. Peace.